Welcome to Your Business Online, where we explore digital business and internet entrepreneurship ideas for persons who are looking to expand their business online or start an online business. Today, we will be giving you an overview of e-commerce in Jamaica and the Caribbean to a large extent. All right, let's jump into it. A lot of persons oftentimes wonder, what is e-commerce? How does it work? How can I make it work for me? And the first thing that you have to understand as as budding entrepreneurs or as experienced business persons is that e-commerce is just an online version or a digital version of normal commerce. So when you think about e-commerce and you want to understand how it works, you have to think about how does a normal commercial experience work. A customer typically has to find you somewhere. So in the case of e-commerce, they're searching for you on their tablet, on their phone, on their laptops, on their desktop computers. And then typically, after they've found you and they have evaluated what you have to sell, then, they'll typically submit an order. So just like if I walk into a party shop and, I've gone to the party shop and I say, all right, I want to order a cheese patty today. Then I walk up to the cashier and I make an order. So similarly, you would submit an order online, and then at the end of that ordering process, you would typically be provided a receipt, similar to how you would receive an email with a copy of your invoice or a quote, or if you've paid already, a receipt. And then typically, the business would look at now processing that order. What does processing that order look like? Typically, again, let's use the example of the party shop. The party shop would pretty much, have somebody go and, put your patty in a bag and hand it to you. It's the same thing as with online. You package the person's purchase, and you then look at giving it to them, right? Which brings us now to our next, our last stage in the commercial process, which is the fulfillment. So when that person hands that patty back to you, it's the same thing as if when you actually pack you pack your goods and you send it off for delivery to that individual, and the person have received it. Once the person have received the package, at that point in time, then the order would have been fulfilled, and there ends the typical cycle of an e-commerce transaction, right? So when you think about e-commerce, guys, it's not rocket science. It's doing off the same business in a digital format. And the digital format can take many forms. When we think about e-commerce, we often think about, persons paying via a website, but, there are much more primitive formats of e-commerce that we should explore and we should consider, especially for those who are starting up. Typically, when somebody is starting up, they don't have a lot of budget to work with. So, and one of the greatest things about, internet entrepreneurship, e-commerce, digital business, is that it gives you the lowest option, the cheapest option for starting up, as opposed to a typical brick and mortar business where you have to go and, get an office space, furnish it, and then start and then put cost and then put staff members in it. And with an e-commerce business, you don't have to make that significant investment. So because of this, oftentimes persons want to create before they run. So a lot of times persons will start with something like an Instagram page. Sometimes it's a product brochure in a PDF format. Sometimes it's just a price list, So once it is that you have the ability to display your products via digital means, and you can disseminate that information to persons, have persons review it, and then make a decision whether or not they want to purchase, whether it is that they may choose to send a bank transfer, or they may choose to confirm their interest in ordering via WhatsApp, and then when you deliver, the person pays cash, right? So this is digital business. When you think about it, it doesn't have to be the whole 9 years of setting up a website with payment options and so forth. As you can imagine, that method really is a very manual and tedious way of executing e-commerce. But if you don't have any budget, and that's the best place to start. Oftentimes, as well, especially if it is that you are testing a new product, a new business, a new service, or if it is that you just want to take baby steps in building out your business, then it is the recommended approach. There's a concept of nailing it before you scale it that I want to introduce to you, which means creep before you run, get it right before you invest a lot of money into it, right? You want to prove your business model before you go ahead and invest heavily in the scaling of it. And that holds true for offline business as well as it holds for online businesses, right? But why do persons typically choose e-commerce? People choose e-commerce oftentimes simply because, of course, the low startup capability, the ability to start up with very low cost, but most importantly, guys, is reach. E-commerce, digital business gives you the most reach when it comes to selling your products and services to persons. It allows you to sell to anybody, anywhere, anytime. It's also one of the businesses that you're able to automate fully, where you're actually making money while you're sleeping. So you can have your head office here in Kingston, Jamaica, and service customers on the other end of the island. You can service your neighbor. You can service persons in the Caribbean. You can service persons in the North Americas, Europe, Africa, you name it. As far as your service allows you to expand. There are some services that are just local services, and that's okay. But when it comes to product sales, somebody can buy your product from anywhere in the world. And there are some services that are scalable as well, that has no limit in terms of where you can reach your customers. So when you think about e-commerce and adding it to your business, one of the strategies behind it has to be around increasing reach to your potential audience, especially with so many persons being online these days. Based on a recent 2024 report done by digitalreport.com, you will see where e-commerce trends are trending up. We're talking about in Jamaica, we're looking at over 3.27 million mobile phone users when there's only a population of 2.83 million, which means that there is significantly more phones than there are people, right? And then when we look at the internet penetration here, it is saying that in Jamaica, we are seeing 85% internet penetration here in Jamaica, which is the highest we have ever seen it. I know COVID was good to us as it relates to increasing in internet usage, but this is significantly larger than pre-COVID numbers. Pre-COVID numbers were hovering around 50 something percent. So this is a significant increase. And then when we look at, even for instance, the number of social media users, we're up to 60% of population. So we're seeing where the digital numbers are trending up, and that's a good thing for digital business, because what does this mean? What this means is that persons who are living within the immediate vicinity of your business here in Jamaica are accessible to do business online. First and foremost, you're able to find you online. 85%, if there's 85% internet penetration, what that means is that 85% of the people here in Jamaica are accessible via the internet. And that's the first thing. If people can't find you, then they can't do business with you, right? Then when you look at the social media numbers here being at 60%, it now means that you're able to promote your business to 60% of the persons here in Jamaica. So this is a very positive growth in internet, mobile, and social media adoption, which makes it even more friendly for digital business to happen and e-commerce to be a viable method of growing your business, selling your products, expanding sale of services, right? But let's look at the global numbers as well. When you look at the global numbers, again, we're seeing here where there's a 107% penetration of mobile users. So, we have 7% more phones than people. We have a general global penetration of 66% in internet usage and 62% in social media usage. Again, guys, these numbers are coming from a digital report, digitalreportal.com, and you can find statistics on any country where these numbers are concerned. Now, one of the areas that is of most keen interest to me is the report on financial inclusion factors. What does this mean? Yes, we have mobile penetration, so people have a lot of phones. That's good. People have access to the internet. That's good. But what about the ability to spend online? How many people have bank accounts to do a bank transfer? How many people have credit cards or debit cards to make an online purchase? These are numbers that we need to know and understand what the size of our target market is and how many people can we realistically sell to, right? So based again on the digitalreportal.com report on financial inclusion factors for Jamaica, we're seeing where we have 73% of our population having an account with a financial institution, which means that people are banked. 73% of our population is banked and is able to conduct business using bank transfers, sending monies from bank to bank and so forth. Without this, that's the first entry point for digital spending. You must have a bank account for it to be able to digitize, right? And then we're seeing where we have a 12% penetration of credit card penetration, but we do have a 47% of debit card penetration and up to 13% of mobile money app usage here in Jamaica. And these are some numbers that again have been trending up. Again, pre-COVID times, we saw some significantly less numbers than these. So these are extremely encouraging numbers, guys. That tells us that it is viable for us to do business online here in Jamaica, even if it's just selling to our Jamaican customers, right? But I think we start thinking about the global penetration. Of course, although it says 66 internet penetration globally, there are some countries that are significantly more, way more than others. There are some countries that have way more credit card and debit card penetration, way more bank accounts. But again, we're just talking about the Jamaican numbers here, right? And considering that Jamaica is a third world country as well. And generally, as when we think about Jamaica, Jamaica's numbers will kind of represent a general average, across the Caribbean. Yes, there are some Caribbean countries that are a little bit less, some are a little bit more, but that's the general average that we've seen right across the Caribbean, right? All right, so let's talk about challenges. So we'll talk about enablers. What are some of the challenges that persons have here in doing business online? One of the issues here is, skepticism about online purchases because of fraud. We've seen recently where security has become a very big issue. A lot more persons' credit cards are being hacked. There's a lot more intrusions within the banking sector. A lot more reports of these types of activities that make persons, a little bit scared of, doing their business online. Unfortunately, the truth is that, even in using your cards offline, there's probably just as much fraud happening, but it's a great inconvenience when persons' cards get hacked and, monies are taken off your cards and you have to go through that investigative process with the banks. You have to get new cards. Some banks are quicker than others as it comes to resolving the issue. Some are not. It's a big headache. And that's why sometimes persons will like to use something like a PayPal account to make payments because I feel a little bit more secure in doing so. Of course, there are ways to engender trust with your target market to let them know your site is trustworthy and so forth. But there are still persons out there who have had negative experiences using their cards, whether locally or globally, and that is one of the things that make persons skeptical about, making a purchase on your website that we have to consider when engaging or when building out this infrastructure, right? The other thing as well is card penetration. So earlier you've heard me mention about 40 something percent in debit card and 12% in credit card. Chances are most credit card holders do have debit cards. So those credit card numbers would have been rolled up into those debit numbers as well. So we're not going to add them to say that, all right, because you have 12% credit card and 40% debit card, it's now on average 60%. No. The reality is that at least 50% of our economy doesn't have credit cards to make purchases online. So just like a gas station, they will always take cash, but they will also look to get a credit card and debit card payment machine to allow persons to have multiple ways to pay, right? So we always recommend persons consider having bank transfer as an alternate payment method on your website, simply because the credit card penetration is not 100% or close to 100% Jamaica, 100% in Jamaica, and you want to be able to capture as much sale as possible. And then you have the consideration for delivery. Now, transportation and logistics has significantly increased over the last couple of years, especially again since COVID. I think there's another year that COVID has been fairly good to. And because of that, now in the city areas, in the town areas, major towns do have quite a bit of bearer and delivery service providers. They may have challenges in the more rural spaces, but you do have service providers who have drop zones that allow you to still get your goods to persons wherever they are in the country. There are some courier services that go straight to your door. Doesn't matter how far in the country you are. It doesn't matter if you don't have a gate number. If the instruction is to turn left at the big tree and leave it at the first house, then they can find you with those types of directions, But that's another challenge that needs to be overcome. I think the biggest challenge right now, logistics-wise, is shipping across the Caribbean. So whilst we're one Caribbean and we're very similar in the things that we like, things that we want, and our interest to buy products from each other, there's a great difficulty in getting goods delivered across the Caribbean. You will most times find that your goods are delivered faster and easier to customers in the US and Canada and even England than your Caribbean counterparts who are much closer. And this is because of the logistics network that is lacking across some of the Caribbean territories. So that's another challenge that exists right now for digital businesses and e-commerce businesses and persons who are just trying to do business across territories in the Caribbean at the moment. So that pretty much rounds up the challenges and also ends our quick overview on e-commerce. I hope you guys enjoyed this session and found some nuggets and some information that can be beneficial to you. We encourage you to like, share, and subscribe.